Hey everybody, happy Saturday night. Today is May 17th, 2025. This is the Across the Pitch post-game show. I am Mike Barrera. My good pal from England, Dave Miller, is with us tonight. Dave, I have to share out the social media stuff, as you know, so please
Yeah.
take the floor here. How are you doing, first and foremost? And how are you feeling after tonight's 1-0 win in Atlanta?
Well, I'm doing well. It was a good night for Philly sports in general. Obviously, the Phillies won the series against the Pirates earlier as well, as the Union game was going on, which was good. So I sort of had a dual watching both games. So I had an eye on both games. Luckily, the first half was goalless in the Union game, so I didn't miss too much, apart from a couple of big chances. But a great win for the Union tonight. And again, it just carries on the momentum, ticking it on as they've carried on after that 3 game winless run they had a couple of, I think it was March time, at the start of April, end of March time. So, they've really started to kick on again. And again, man, this team just doesn't, they're winning, they're just defying the odds in the sense that I think we were saying in the group chat, like, this is the game you look at and go, yeah, they probably lose this game. And I think I
Yep.
saw Carl Almany's tweet saying this is only the Union's second ever win at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and their first ever MLS play. So again, they keep. I don't know. It has a different feel this year, and I think to what we've seen in previous seasons, where like a night like tonight, the Union try something different, or they rotate the squad a bit, and they end up losing 2-0, whatever. And that was it. Tonight was just a solid performance, and we got to see Bueno as well. I'm sure we'll touch on that a bit later. But it was nice to see other players get minutes, and I'm sure Carnell had Wednesday night in his mind, perhaps with some of the team selection, with some of the players that he rested on the bench. And again, the fixture schedule started to get a bit congested now as well. So it's
Yeah.
um, no, yeah. Again, considering the squad rotation and how they start the game, trying to match Atlanta up, it's a great win, great win.
Absolutely. Jose's joined us as well. I'll bring him on right away. Jose Nunez. Hello, sir. I'm assuming Bradley Carnell's already off his press conference if you're here.
He is. I had nothing to ask him. I think this game is such a, or was, I should say, such a. I mean, he said it best, right? It was a smash and grab, right? Come in, smash it, and leave with whatever you can, and ultimately left with the 3 points. But I don't know what you both were talking about before I joined, but man, this has to feel like the coming out party for Andrew Rick in a way, right? In terms of like an unbelievable performance, 3 incredible saves or moments specifically, but nonetheless, like it makes you wonder, right? Like if you start thinking about what is the succession plan for someone like Andre Blake, who finds himself injured now, 3 games on the bounce, maybe 4 if he doesn't play on Wednesday against Pittsburgh. It makes you wonder, right? Like, is he the guy, and what does that look like for someone like Oliver Semla, which I think I've speculated enough, and I'm not here to break some news, but like, or any news whatsoever. I would think that he's certainly the odd man out, considering he takes up an international spot and is making over $100,000, which I can't imagine there are any USL sides that would want to pick up all of that salary, if not a very small portion for broken assets.
Absolutely. I'm about to bring on Kyle Almany joins us as well. So I'm going to bring on some comments real quick because they keep flooding in and I don't want to ignore all our good friends and followers. First, I'll bring Kyle on. Before I get to you, Kyle, first, Dan joins us. Let's effing go. He's hyped up. Dan says, if someone shares with me Ernst's home address, I will deliver to him his flowers, bring home a trophy, maybe a reach round. Dan's just in a friendly mood tonight. Valerie joins us as well. Everybody loves Ernst. Our friend Joe Oblick. Actually, Joe, I got to see Joe this afternoon before I went off running my errands and doing a bunch of family stuff. We got lunch today out in King of Prussia. So, Joe, it was great to see you and hand off that Bridge Brigade scarf that I have. But he says, holy shit, this team is different. And that's very much the feeling. This team feels different. Kyle, top of the East, guys. We are top of the Eastern Conference right now. Something that we let fall out of our grasp not that long ago against Columbus. Now we have it back, and we're in the top spot. Other comments here. Let's see. I'm trying to think here. We're going to go with, Mandy joins us. Hi, lads, and chat from Atlanta. I just saw Mandy posted one of the videos that she had after the Brebo PK. Great stuff, Mandy. Thank you for joining us as well. And Jillian's here as well. So I'll shoot to you guys before I continue with the comments. Kyle and Jillian, how are you both doing tonight?
We're good. How are you doing, Julian?
Doing well, thanks. Yeah, big win for the Union on the road. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what you need with the U.S. Open Cup coming up. I mean, they rotated, they defended. I mean, that was an incredible defending performance. Although spotty at times in the first half, you felt the Atlanta goal coming, but never did.
Yeah, and Rick
credit
played out of
to
his mind.
yeah, can't say any better.
Well, to your point, Jillian, Frank mentions right here, Rick was the player of the game. And I think everybody
Oh,
could agree with
absolutely.
that.
100%.
Jose kind of hinted at this was kind of his coming out party tonight.
I agree with Jose on that because, yeah, I mean those saves in the second half and even the first half. That first shot makes that nice hand, knocks the ball wide. I mean, what did you think of his performance, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he showed a lot of confidence.
He
Things that
did.
we've seen, that's so much poise out of a 19-year-old. You've seen him grow so much since last year. It's been incredible to see, and I
Mhm.
think that he's got great mentors around him. Between having Phil Whedon, Ross Kane, he's got Andre there. He's got some,
Which Carnell gave a shout out to Phil.
yeah, so just tremendous. And I think that this should continue to help build his confidence because
Absolutely.
Lord knows, when we're gonna get Andre back.
And I'm sorry, Jose, what was your comment about Rick? Because I'd love to hear it.
No, I mean it's an incredible game for him, but like
Mhm.
I take a step back and I continue to sort of reflect in silence, listening to you guys. It's also another like frankly vote of confidence on Bradley Carnell, right? I mean, if you were watching the game and looking at it tactically, you saw that the moving pieces, right? If you're looking at it with like checker pieces on a field, like you saw it just continuing to move around and bounce. And Lukic was a right attacking mid at one moment, and then going back as a right back, and then you had Kai playing center back, sometimes moving forward into the middle, and then he mentioned it into or during the press conference, which was unbelievable quick because like
Yeah.
get going, brother, like you got to get home to Philadelphia. I don't want to ask you anything. He mentioned that during that match they moved or shifted formation, I should say, 4 different times throughout that match because. And this is maybe the difference. And I have appreciated everything Jim Curtin did for Philadelphia over the 10, 11 years. Incredible servant to the club, incredible ambassador for the club, the city, the sport, etc. But you don't get that from Jim Curtin. You don't get 4 formations within one match from Jim Curtin, where even Bradley Cornell said exactly what I had hoped to hear was, and it was, I should say, we were playing this way, and then we shifted to this, and then we got found out, and then we shifted to this other formation. That would have never happened in a Jim Curtin Philadelphia, where it would have been more of and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I think you sometimes have to bend the knee a little bit
Right.
rather than playing to your strengths, maybe playing to the opponent's weaknesses, and that's what Bradley Cornell did so well today, and I continue to be a believer of his for as much as I maybe question him and whatever. Like I am a firm believer that he and his staff and this way of thinking, and even though it may not be pretty, it is producing results. And I had mentioned to you, and I know I'm going on here for a little bit, but Mike and Dave, like we in our separate chat had mentioned, who cares about going to Atlanta, right? Like I often chalk that up to a draw feels like a victory, a loss feels like it's intended just because of how difficult it is to play there. The turf, the crowd, the atmosphere, whatever. But to walk away with 3 points as you're playing 4 different formations and starting with such a wacky lineup and then throwing in other players and these scheduled subs while also giving rest to some of these guys that are going to run for hopefully only 90 minutes on Wednesday. It's unbelievable. Like you could not have asked for a better result. Never mind a 19-year-old goalkeeper who's continuing to prove himself to be a $3 to $5 million goalkeeper. Should anybody want to buy him? Like it is like checking off so many boxes all within 90 minutes. I am unbelievably impressed with this team, and I think everybody should probably feel a little bit of pride if you are either covering or supporting them.
Well, let's talk about the formation. Dave, I'm going to shoot to you next regarding kind of this early part of the match here. So To your point, Jose, and what Carnell mentions, you have this really like wacky lineup, and I'm just gonna run through for people who aren't, listen to this tomorrow or after the fact or didn't watch the game. You have Andrew Rick in net, you have Macania, Wagner, and Harriel. In the back line, you have Jesus Bueno and Bedoya starting, Damiani, Westfield, Lukic, Donovan, and Ua as your starting 11 tonight. To your point, Jose, and to what Cardinals is going with this odd formation, it looked like you had Kai as your left center back, Lukic on the right wing back, Bedoya and Bueno kind of in front of that line as well. Damiani in between both Ua and Donovan, and in front of Bedoya and Bueno. So, Dave, what were your thoughts on that initial starting lineup and formation? Because it's certainly something that we haven't seen ever before with this particular squad. And to Jose's point again, not something that I would ever expect something from Jim Curtin as a coach.
I mean, I think it was more a case of matching Atlanta up to start the game. So, I mean, again, match them at back five. So you didn't get overrun the field, out on the wing, whatever. And I think to be fair, you could see that Atlanta were getting a lot of joy on their left hand side, the Union's right hand side. Early on, this a lot, quite a few of their attacks were coming from, and you sort of, and again, whether that's obviously because Lukic was playing out of position, whatever. I thought again. I think, as Jose said, like you chalk up. You go into this game, you chalk it up as a draw. Perhaps I'm not saying Carnell thought that, but perhaps he's going, okay, we can experiment with this game. We know where we have our eggs in what basket, which is obviously looking towards Wednesday, especially with squad rotation. Having Glesnes, Baribo, Quinn Sullivan Downley on the bench. Perhaps he looked at it, try and experiment. Obviously, didn't work, and credit to him, he changed it. And I think, as Jose said as well, does Jim Curtin perhaps do that if the diamond's not changing? Probably not. At most, he probably looks to go to a Christmas tree, or he does his scheduled changes. Again, no disrespect to Jim, that's just sort of the way that's sort of what we became more accustomed to the last few years. Was, again, if it's not working, we'll make the changes on the hour, we'll battle through to the hour, and if it doesn't work, then 75 minutes to make another two changes, like for like, and then we'll go from there. Whereas, to be fair to Carnell, he saw at half time they weren't perhaps getting enough, having as much joy going forward as well. And again, bringing on Baribo and then changing it to what seemed to be a 4-3-3, I think, and obviously dropping, moving Lukic up, and then going to a traditional 4-3-3 with, and then. But then again, I think there's a credit as well to him, which perhaps we have been critical in the past of, was not making reactionary subs, but having an eye to what you need to do, making changes before something bad happens. I mean, we've seen it in massive games where the Union have, seen players get booked really early on, and you're thinking, I think the CCL semi-final against LAFC, for example, like Bazo getting a really early on a card, and you're thinking, all right, we're in big trouble if he and again, instead of taking him off at half time and getting them right back on, especially when he's playing against Carlos Vela and Buaga, and Barza gets sent off and the game collapses. And I think Bedoya, again, in centre field and taking Damiani off both relatively early, proved like solid changes, especially when you're going 1-0 up, the game's going to get a bit more scrappy, you're going to have to be a bit more physical, and when you essentially have a midfielder and an aging midfielder in the other card, you're going to be a body down essentially. So I think credit to Carlisle. I think in terms of tactical changes, I think got it all spot on, especially going back towards the end, backs to the wall, bringing Glesnes on, and just changing the formations, just trying to keep it fresh and trying to, I think as Jose alluded to as well, working not just to your own strengths, but trying to pick apart Atlanta's weaknesses. And I think you sort of saw that in the way that, again, looking at the chance creation, Union created more chances and had the more shots on target. They tested the opposition more. And I mean, again, to be fair, the 3 saves that Rick had to make were incredible saves. But again, the Union, again, has been a common trend this year, have created so many chances. I've been, again, the team looking to push the agenda and create more chances and trying to test the opposition goalkeeper, shooting from distance. And I think, again, a very positive performance and something that you can properly build upon going towards. I know you got the cup game in midweek, but going to Inter Miami next weekend.
Absolutely. Kyle and Jillian, I'm going to ask you guys a question that Mandy asked, but then also kind of touch on Makanya, because I know you have more experience with him between Union 2 and Union 1. So Mandy is here. Do we still think we should be looking for a backup so we can loan Rick out, or should we just keep him at this point? And then the second part of this for you guys is Makanya, in my opinion, the second half was phenomenal. I thought he played extremely well in that second half, and his tackle kind of led to that Baribo penalty kick at first. So I know whoever wants to go first, Kyle, Jillian, what are your thoughts on those two questions? Both Rick's long-term presence this season and then Makanya's performance tonight.
I mean, I think like being greedy, I went Rick around because Andre's been so questionable with his health status, and then do you want to either go out and get someone or you have to rely on like Zemla. But that's the tricky question because I think Rick keeps building his confidence, and the more he gets to play at a high level, the more he's benefiting from that. And MLS Next Pro is not terrible, but it's also not playing MLS. It's not playing at that as high of a level sometimes. But
he's graduated from that.
Yeah. And honestly, and with Union too, like Zemla and Sheridan do fine. They do fine for them.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not like you absolutely need Rick in that situation anyway. But one thing I said to Kyle during the match was, you look at Makanya was playing really well, and he would have his moments last year with Union too that were like, oh man, he just got cooked, or he really
would be over aggressive.
He'd be over aggressive, and he'd
get caught up high.
But also though, I said to Kyle tonight, I said, I see that chemistry that Makanya and Rick have because they've played together so much, and that's beneficial. And Frankie has that chemistry too, so you see that as well. But I think that certainly helps. But really good to see Makanya building that confidence as well because, sometimes he could be a little shaky, but this is one of his best jobs I've seen. And when he's good, he's very good. So you see why they signed him as a U22.
I still go back to the yin and yang. You don't know what you get with Makanya. I'm not trying to be Negadelphia here. Tonight, he was excellent. And there's a couple times I continue to see him learn from his mistakes from last year. Now, he'll still make those mistakes here and there, and then when their mistakes are massive, but he's starting to pick it up.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I know, Dave, you probably see young players too, where you're, at your club in England, they learn on the fly, and it's kind of sink or swim. But I do feel like Carnell is starting to trust him more and more. And whether it's, we'll start Harry on Glesnes, but we're going to bring Makanya on to close down the match or at least try to do something. I think that's a good thing. So you're seeing that development. As for Rick, he needs to play. And if Blake comes back and he's healthy, you're going to send him back down to Union 2. He needs to find something there, like whether it's a loan. But then if you loan him, sell Oliver, I mean, where you at?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're kind of at a crossroads with him, in my opinion. And I would like to say he needs playing time at this point in his career. And I know Jose, Todd, we've all said that he needs playing time at this point.
I think you're a catch-22. I think at some point the succession plan for Andre Blake needs to be put into place. And I think, no disrespect, now is probably the right time. And Blake's still one of the best goalkeepers in the league, but you can't trust him to play more than 3 games in a row. Like, me and Mike discussed this before the show, and I think we discussed it last time we were both live. Like, at this point now, like Andre Blake, this knee problem's never going away. I mean, he had the meniscus surgery last year to try and hopefully get over the issues that he did have, and the same issue, the fluid in the knee and everything keeps building up, and it keeps happening. And I think at some point in the Union, you have to look at it and go, okay, it's a massive cost, it's a massive thing that we're investing in on Andre Blake. Again, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the MLS, but at some point you have to look at it from a club perspective and go, is it worth having him for 14 games of a season when you've got, again, what we've seen tonight and what we have seen in the appearances that Andrew Rick has made. When we have got a viable young goalkeeper who we can trust to go and perform when we need him to, as shown tonight. And again, he's been reliable. Apart from I thought what game was it I'm trying to think what game they lost 1-0 a while back. I'll have a look. But apart from I think the one sort of mini mistake he made a few weeks ago, when
New York City.
It was NYCFC. That back in my head, yeah. And apart from the New York game, I think
I was there. I hated it.
Yeah, it was the New York game. I think that was the game. Me and Mike. I think at that point now, you either have to buy in and go, look, this is our future, and we're going to go with it, because again, we might have Andre for one game, and then he goes out injured again for another 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And just keep going with him. I think as Carl and Julian both also alluded to with young players, like you have to go with the highs and the lows with them. They're learning on the move, and if he does make a mistake as a young goalkeeper, okay, that's fine. We don't drop him. We don't just drop him because he's made that mistake. You stick with him and just let him work it out. And I think at this point now for Andre Blake, like it's do or die for him. If he misses again the next couple of games, you have to genuinely look at it and think, is he going to come back, and is he going to come back at 100%? Because I think we saw it last year when he was suffering with this knee injury. He was starting games, but couldn't even last 30 minutes before having to
or
come
he
off.
wasn't even taking the goal kicks. Sometimes
yeah.
You had Jacob or Elliot do it, and I think also, like as you guys are kind of hitting, like Rick is playing confident. You sometimes just ride the hot hand, and he's very, very much the hot hand at this point. And one kind of thing I want to touch upon that these a couple comments I mentioned, and I'll kind of shoot to Jose next to talk about the substitutions and other parts of this match. So Kyle joins us tonight and says the decision to move on from Jim Curtin was probably one of the most criticized moves by everyone, and it's exactly what this team needed. Everything with this team was so stagnant with him. And then further in the comments, our a good friend T-Mac says, agreed, Kyle. Curtin was maybe the Union's Andy Reid. Great run with great teams and clearly a good coach. Things might have just gotten stale and players needed a new voice. And I think we've kind of mentioned on this show, guys, for both of you. There's no question that Curtin's a great coach, or a good coach at least. But it just felt like last year, for as much as the players love Curtin, as much as the players would still play hard for Curtin, the voice in that locker room just went quiet, went south. It wasn't going in the way you wanted to. And I think we've seen in times in the past where we've had these matches where you have a heavy rotation and an odd formation, and we always said just get to the halftime 0-0 and we'll try to figure it out from there. Carnell kind of had the same game plan today. Let's just try to get to the half and then maybe see what happens then. But Jose, to your point, it was so clear the adjustments being made while the game was going on to then show the clear difference between what we had with Curtin and what we had with Carnell. And I'll bring up some more comments in a little bit as well. But just to look at the subs tonight, we had Vasiliev in for Bueno, Danley in for Bedoya, Sullivan for Damiani, Baribo for Chris Donovan to start the second half, and then Glessens at the end for Ua. Dave, I know you had mentioned the 2 yellow cards. Bedoya and Bruno had yellow cards, so he took them off the pitch, especially after we got that first goal, which was great. But Jose, your thoughts on the subs, and then I'll actually mention something that Philly Rovers said here too. But what are your thoughts on the substitutions tonight for Carnell?
Subs were great. I think it was all planned, frankly. Like it was, hey, can you go and just hang tight with these guys for 45, 50 minutes, and then the lot of you just go in and just try to finish this game out, right? Like that's exactly what it felt like. And in the beginning I was like, okay, why isn't Danley starting and Bedoya? It's like, oh, well, Bedoya can probably give you a solid 45, 50 minutes. On turf, maybe 45. Like it totally checks out to me. I have, honestly, this is how Andrew Rick, whatever his FOTMob ranking was, whether it was like 8-8 or 9-0, like I think Carnell gets like a 9-5. This was like an unbelievable like match for this guy, and I got my bone to pick with the dude, but like ultimately, like he his staff, the players absolutely nailed this. I am over the moon with whatever they drank ahead of the game. What was your question? Is it about what's happening in June with
Philly Rovers brings up here what's happening in June though. Jamaica has 5 or 6 games. So again, we know Andre Blake is getting the liquid or the fluids drained from his knee. Us in the last show had said we could see him back Open Cup maybe against Miami. But with these matches in June, then how does that maybe change your perspective? Do we just kind of keep him out of the rotation?
Yeah, so what's happening here, Jamaica goes to England actually on May 20 whatever, and on the 27th they play against a TNT, Trinidad and Tobago, and against the winner of, forget what the other side is. I think it's like Ghana versus Nigeria, and like a 4-team Afro-American sort of a tournament celebration of African history type of thing, which is really cool actually, happening in England, not too far away. It's a small country. Nothing's far away from you compared to America. You know this. But then fast forward, you look at what Jamaica has on the 7th, and I'm sure this would be a different team altogether, but on June 7th, they have a World Cup qualifier, and then on the 10th, they have another World Cup qualifier, and then fast forward to the 16th, the Gold Cup starts here in the States. So I don't know anything. I would never accuse a player of doing this. This is just me pure speculating, but one has to wonder, right? Like this is a very busy schedule. I think it's fair to say that representing Jamaica or representing any one nation is the ultimate honor for a football player, a soccer player, whatever. Like, I wouldn't, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a world where Andre Blake is sort of saying, I want to be healthy to represent my nation, and that's sort of what the move is here. And I wouldn't fault him for it, but I also makes you wonder, right? Like this is a player that's making not nearly $100 million at his age, just got an extension. Meanwhile, Andrew Rick, I think, is just over 100 or nearly at $100,000, and probably blowing all I know he's blowing my expectations out of the water, but I'm sure contractually he and Frankie Westfield probably blowing all of the contract expectations out of the water in terms of what they're supposed to do. So yeah, that's what's going on with Jamaica here in the coming months. And it's just the weirdness of the MLS schedule coinciding with an international window. And I actually don't know if the rest of the world sort of slows down for the Gold Cup. I don't know. MLS doesn't play through the Gold Cup, especially if it's happening here, right?
I don't remember. Honestly, at this point, all these tournaments blend together. I don't remember what's going on half the time.
There's about 3 different versions of the Gold Cup. It's like the CONCACAF Gold Cup. It's like the CONCACAF
Nation. Is it the Nations Cup or something?
League, and then there's like another one for like the smaller nations to play each other.
That's bullshit. Yeah, they play right through it, brother. Jamaica's World Cup Gold Cup game on the 16th actually is 2 days after the Union play against Charlotte. So yeah, it goes hand in hand. So it's like I don't know. I don't want to say anything because I know people that pay attention to this, take what I say specifically and run with it. Blake can do whatever he wants, but it's sort of interesting that it's lining up with an upcoming international window.
I mean, if I'm Blake, and to Frank's point here, if it's for a World Cup qualifier, I'm sure he wants to be healthy and ready to go for that.
Last one has to be his last chance.
It would have to be. And I think we've talked about this when we talked about when he's going to come back. Would he come back today against Atlanta? We said, hopefully not. Open Cup, etc. And I said, I don't know if I trust Rick and Net against Miami, but I think after tonight's performance, I trust him more than I trust a possibly less than 100% Andre Blake, just considering how well he played. And even our good friend Elvia said, dare I say, I'm excited for Miami. She just shot me a text right now. So it seems like people are excited for the club and what these young kids have to offer. But go ahead, Jose.
This is the thing. And like I started thinking, this is a $48 million attack in Atlanta that Andrew Rick and company just like stymied, like completely, completely blocked. Like I'm just smiling thinking about it. Like it's unbelievable how poorly things are going for Atlanta this season. And as I mentioned to Dave, I've seen broken men. And when you look at Latte La on this team right now, that is the face of a broken man. That is the face of a man who wonders, was this pay? Was this bag worth it? And I don't know. all I'll say is that I don't think that many Atlanta beat writers need to save how to spell the coach's last name for much longer. Like, this is an awful run this guy is in, and doesn't have a whole lot to back it up.
Yeah, they're in 14th place as of before ESPN has updated everything. They're in 14th place with, what is it, 2 wins and in 13
That's
games and 11
terrible.
points so far. Not great.
That's
Not
terrible.
good, of course, as Jim Curtin would say.
I mean, especially with the money that you know has been heavily invested there. I mean, that's like terrible. And I think again, it's another. I mean, you see Toronto down there as well. It's another advert, perhaps, of having that fine line between overspending in the MLS and really do you know what I mean? I know a lot of us, probably me and Mike included, in the off season, probably have got on the Union's back for perhaps not spending the money they should, well, they need to be spending, or perhaps could be spending. Like, perhaps it does show the fine line on the other side of where you perhaps do overspend and just get players who perhaps do come to the MLS and think that they're too good for the league, and they're they think they're too good for the league, and they come here and they come there, and the reality hits that the league's actually a lot tougher than they realise. But again, that is a shocking record. We're second bottom with that sort of team, having Miguel Almiron and bizarre.
So Kyle and Jillian, something that was mentioned by Domesticated Hoagie earlier in the comments was Kai Wagner might have a concussion after he started pouring blood onto the turf in Atlanta. Now, with Open Cup coming up on Wednesday, and all this congested schedule that we've had, I think the rotation and keeping these guys fresh, like Glesson's taking a break today, I think was fantastic. I'm glad that Jacob got the day off. But Kai Wagner has played a shit ton for us lately. One, do you want to see him on Wednesday? And two, who would you rather see at left back? Because we did see David Vasquez in left back, which I know you guys gotten to see a lot in Union too. So what are your thoughts on Kai's play tonight, and I guess how you would like to see him being used on Wednesday?
I thought Kai did great tonight. I asked Bradley in the presser about why tactically he, kept a bit, the thought of keeping him in when, he could have definitely taken him out there at that point with him, on a yellow and also bleeding out his head. But I also said, we were joking. We're like, well, if Kai goes back in, that just proves what a baller he is. I mean, I won't be surprised. He wants to be out there. So obviously he did go back in, and Bradley said because of the leadership he brings on the field, and at that point in the game, they needed that there, and how he was playing. So, I mean, I get it. Absolutely. So.
And Domestic Hoagie brings up, I mean, we were both talking about that.
Yeah, Kai was wearing, the captain's armband today.
I think.
Yeah. Good for Kai.
I mean, you could still go Harrell. I mean, Biza was in the roster. I mean, you go Biza, you go
Isaiah LaFleur. I will say this. No, I'm not ready necessarily for him in that role if moving around some of the other guys is a better option. But I will say, from what I've seen with him playing with Union 2, which again, as Jim always said, especially it's not the same, but I will give credit to LaFleur. He looks better every time I see him play.
Right.
He's shaking off the rust, and I'm seeing him play very well. I thought the last regular game they had, he played really, really well. I saw him play yesterday.
And Richter has said this to both of us multiple times. However, I think if you're in that situation, you rest Kai. I think Vasquez will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could throw Harrell or Frankie.
We have
Frankie can play Frankie can play left back. We saw him play left back all last season with Union 2.
And he was over there. And I just at times switching off. I think you'd be fine. However, I'd like to see Frankie get a night off. I know he's young, but he deserves a night off, like Kai does.
He does, but do you think he wants a night off?
No, Frankie. Yeah, like
no way.
Like no.
No.
I mean, and that's what we love about.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want a night off, but I think at his age, he probably could afford like 45 first half or coming on second half. I just think good rotation, smart rotation on both the outbacks in the center back position. You do it in midfield. You do it all over. I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And we were saying during the game, too, as much as we love Jim Curtin, that subbing I don't think would have happened as much as
No.
So I mean, credit to Bradley for really subbing well, and that rotation, it worked out tonight. So
Again, just like you and I were talking about during the match, this is a perfect storm if the Union get 3 points.
Yeah, because we were like, oh, we'd be happy with 1 point at that point. Yeah.
They rotated.
Yep.
They got 3 points. And depending on what happens with Vancouver and Austin.
Last I checked, that game was about done regulation, and it was still tied. Let me see. It is 90 plus 1. It's still scoreless.
All right. Well,
now scoreless, we take the first in the MLS, don't we?
Yeah, we got.
Yes.
So who thought through
second,
match day 14 the Union would be in first place?
At the moment, Cincy is in second because Union has better goal differential, and Vancouver's in third for the Shield.
Now it's still early.
It's early, but still.
Motherfucker.
What happened?
Stop the count, of course.
I am not muted. My bad.
What happened?
I'm trying to watch the. So I'm trying to watch the Pittsburgh game against Colorado, and it's asking me to re-log in, and this is the bullshit behind ESPN. Like, brother, I've logged in 5 minutes ago. Why am I logging in again?
What's the score there?
Last I saw, it was 1-0 Colorado. Plug. Anthony Fontana Monday interview dropping, hour and 10 minutes long. But still 1-0 Colorado winning. I think as you were talking, Jillian, it's sort of like
Vancouver, and by the way, not to interrupt, but the Vancouver game is over. It's scoreless. So there you go. Anyway,
fantastic. I can't like. There's no like. I think today made it very obvious, and again, Carnell is a guy that can shock, obviously, based on just solely today. But like, there's no world where I don't see Kai, Glesnes, Makanya, Frankie, Lukic, Stanley, Quinn, Vasilev, and then take your pick between Bruno and Baribo and Ua. Like, it has to be like the top of the lineup for against Pittsburgh. The Union are playing against the only USL side left in the competition. That game cannot go more than 90 minutes, considering that they play Miami on Saturday. Never mind that they can't. I mean, if anything, like this has been so far, and we're on May 17. This has been probably one of the most successful months so far in like this club's like last 5 years in terms of like results, right? Of like, I think if you were to ask a lot of the people covering or as press or as fans watching, like probably would have had today as they would say a scheduled loss, or like some other people like just ultimately like some of these games just being like, all right, whatever, like, but like this has completely reset the relationship between a lot of fans and press with the team, right? In terms of like what they can actually achieve. It's like it's incredible.
Well, Jose, to your point, like I told Jillian in our match preview, I think I told you this. I had this 5-game span at the Union were going to pick up 5 points, and they're already at what, 7?
They have 3 against Montreal, 1 against Columbus, 3 against LA, 3 against Atlanta. So 3.
They're 9. I mean, so I'm way off.
Well, they have 10.
To your point.
So far. They have 10 so far in May with 2 games, with 3 MLS games to go.
And I said we need 11 points in May.
Yeah.
So, hey.
I was going to say, quickly looking at the game as well. Wednesday. Was it Wednesday or Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Is Wednesday. I get confused all there. Obviously, it says Thursday on here for some reason. It's Thursday for me because it's 5 hours ahead. But no, do you rest Nate Harriel with looking ahead to into Miami? Because if he does play on Wednesday, that's obviously 4 games in 2 weeks, and if he then goes on to play against Miami, that's 5 games in.
And Nathan Harriel also had a wrap around his thigh today too. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Well, that's one point that somebody brought up. I think it was Dan Bizo at right back. So you could go if you want to rest Frankie, you put Vasquez at left, maybe Macania and Glessens on Wednesday at center back, and then Olivier on the right hand side to give Nathan that rest. Dave, what do you think of that back four? Or
I think I probably would agree with that. I think again, I think it's just I think tonight as well. Probably it did sort of feel like managing minutes, making sure that you don't push everyone too far, which I did like. Again, I think that you're coming into this period of the season as well where it's very congested. You're probably just playing Saturday night, Wednesday night, Saturday night, Wednesday night.
mm-hmm.
It's a lot of quick turnarounds. So again, I do appreciate that's perhaps another thing that Carnell should be praised for is the fact that how he is managing minutes as opposed. Again, I don't want to feel like we're criticizing Jim too much or dumping on Jim, but the amount of times we'd sit there and say the exact same team, or we'd see Bedoya rolled out for 90 minutes, like over 4 games in 2 weeks, or 5 games in 2.5 weeks. You think, Christ, give the guy a break. Like the fact that he is rotating bodies, is making sure that he's keeping players fit.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would expect to see the same on Wednesday night. I mean, my question is, do we perhaps see a Raffanello or even a Kevin Sullivan start maybe on Wednesday night, or just the fact that he has started, that players like Quinn and Downley have come off the bench indicates that they probably will start on Wednesday?
I think you guys are forgetting about one player entirely. He made his Union bench debut, but how about Ben Bender? I mean, Jose, you asked about Bender on Thursday, whenever the last random press conference was, and Carnell was like, "Oh, he's kind of coming along." But I mean, he is coming from USL. He was playing with Rowdies last year. I think it was last year, early this year. So he's had some experience against clubs in that level, right? So we already know he's obviously played MLS, so we know we can throw him in there and he'll be perfectly fine. But if you're gonna kind of wean him into this lineup and this rotation against a USL squad, kind of makes sense. I don't know, Jose, if you agree that we see Bender on Wednesday.
If it's 2-0, maybe, right? I think what's, and you're absolutely right, Mike. Like that was a face, and that I noticed when I looked at the sheet. It's like, oh, okay, Ben's made the bench. That's good, and that's progress, right? But had today been 3-0, I don't think Ben Bender goes in anyways. If Wednesday is 2-0, I think maybe that makes sense. I think what people are forgetting is that this Carnell system, as energy drink as it is, as Red Bull as it is, like it's actually very complex in the way that the cues are for like pressing and moving and shifting around. And again, like to go through 4 different formations and get all 10, let's say Andrew Rick remains out of it since his positioning is really within 18 yards tops, but like to get 10 players to actually pick up on it is it's unreal, especially when you're doing it 4 times in one match. Yeah. It's very complicated that I wonder if Ben's even quite ready yet to like actually enact it in full play yet, right? It's only been a week and a half since he's joined the outfit, so I would probably go ahead and guess that it won't be Wednesday unless it's a high-scoring game in favor of Philadelphia. It can't imagine he tosses them against Miami. And I honestly have such short-term memory, and my life moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour, that I don't know who they face after Miami.
It's Toronto, and then they go
Toronto
Dallas
on the road, and then
Toronto sounds like a wonderful place to throw Ben Bender in as a substitute.
It's a tough turnaround. They go Wednesday, Saturday.
That's pretty much,
yeah, go ahead, Dave.
So that's pretty much been their life for the last month, basically. And then obviously they play the Dallas game, and then they play every other week, don't they, after that? So they get a bit of a break. But I don't know why.
Well, after May 31st, they have a 2-week break when they host Charlotte on June 14th. So they're over.
Don't forget about the Atlas friendly.
They have a friendly on June 7th, but I imagine that's the Olney and Vasquez and hopefully he's healthy. Neil Pierre, sort of, like come and check out our players display. And then in July, if I recall, isn't that when they host Eintracht Frankfurt?
Yes,
forgot about that. Jesus
Which
Christ.
Is a Champions League club, by the way. Champions League talent coming to Subaru Park. Buy your tickets. Use code. Just kidding. We don't get a code. They don't like us. Believe me, they would not give us a code.
I wonder if Paxton Harrison will play.
Paxton Aronson's on loan. He goes back to his club.
Yeah, in Frankfurt. He'll go back to Frankfurt.
Oh
wouldn't he?
shit, that's right. He was at Vitesse before, right? Yeah.
It was at
Goes back to
Vitesse.
Frankfurt.
It was at Vitesse, and then credit to Paxton. He played 32
Yeah,
games in the Eredivisie this year for Utrecht and scored 8 goals and got 4 assists.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, he could. Yeah, wow. Wow.
Question I have from Frank. I guess I'll shoot to Kyle and Jillian for this one. We're bouncing around here tonight after this fun Union win. Frank says, thoughts on Bueno tonight? Thought he looked okay. Now, we've been clamoring for Bueno, I think, probably for the first 2 months of the season. This past month, we've seen more and more of Bueno. So, Kyle and Jillian, what did you think about Choo Choo tonight?
Yeah, no, I thought he looked good tonight. You know, every time he's been on the field, honestly, when he gets the chance, I think he looks pretty solid. You know, what do you think, Kyle?
I mean, personally, I think it's another tool for Carnell to go to off the bench and in a spot start like tonight. I mean, I've always liked Choo Choo's game. Now,
Same.
I know him and Jim, he would score 3 goals and they wouldn't play for like 6 matches, and or even the rest of the season, or I don't know what was up there. But having said that, like, yeah, he was fine. It was just an average game, but to see him start to give some other player a rest, that's a good situation for the Union to be in.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot this past few weeks is the trust that Carnell has in this rotation, this lineup. I mean, players like I said, Raffanello, Sullivan last year a bit too. Bueno, obviously, we didn't see them much last season, if at all, because Dave, to your point, Curtin would just kind of throw out the same rotation until it collapsed on the field. But to see these players developing and getting better, I think one of the things that Curtin did so well is kind of getting the most out of his roster, right? He had so little to spend with in terms of the club, but he somehow managed to get the most out of these players every single season. MLS Cup run, CCL run, whatever you might want to say. But individually speaking, I think Carnell's really allowing these players to thrive despite this change of formation, despite players playing out of position like Nathan Harriel, like Jeremy Raffanello playing more of a defensive mid compared to what we saw in the previous seasons. Indy Vasiliev bouncing back and forth between two. Even Bruno Damiani playing a slightly different position tonight. And Jose, I'm actually going to ask you about Damiani's performance tonight because you and I were talking about that in the chat. It's really making this team deeper every single week, because they're gaining the experience. Like, yes, do we have a club like Atlanta? No, we don't. We don't have the money being thrown around this roster, and we have all these star players coming in. But every single one of these players, even Chris Donovan, is playing really confident right now. And they all know their roles, and they all seem to be just accepting and attacking those roles at the fullest extent. And Jimmy King posted on Twitter earlier, like, this team believes in Carnell, but this city now believes in Carnell. And I only expect Super Park to get busier and busier every single week as long as they continue to win. So besides this Miami match, when there's going to be a bunch of fake fans in the stands, I really can't wait to see what this stadium is going to look like in June and July and August. And they're still winning, and they're still at the top of this table. But Jose, one of the biggest additions, I guess, if you want to focus on money being spent, was Bruno Damiani. And he was playing a bit out of our usual position for him. So what did you think of Bruno's performance tonight against Atlanta?
Let me start off by saying that maybe I have a soft spot for the guy just solely from being South American, right? Like, and I'll be super transparent about that. Like, maybe I have a soft spot for the guy, but I think that maybe he played his role, right? And I think had the Union not won, you sort of question, like, shit, why didn't you push this guy up? Why are you playing him as a false 9 or a 10, whatever you want to call it at that point? Like, just sort of, behind Ua and Donovan. Just very peculiar. And I posted about it, but even the Spanish broadcast was actually sort of like joking about, like, if you buy a microwave, where do you put it? In the kitchen. If you buy a toilet, where do you put it? In the bathroom. Well, that's how you're supposed to build a team, putting pieces where they belong. And obviously Carnell was just moving and shifting shit around, and ultimately it worked. So With Bruno today, I think he played his part in terms of winning air balls, using his movement, using his bodies, maybe drawing fouls. He worked hard. I mean, there were several times where I saw him sprinting to position, sprinting to defend, to maybe slow down things to allow a Lukic to get back and be a right back when he was, getting caught up maybe a little further up and then, losing the ball, etc. But you obviously want the guy to score. You want the guy to assist, and look no further than those first 6 minutes, I think, or maybe I'm mistaking the timestamp. But he almost made a goal out of thin air with
Yeah, that was
taking
nice.
a shitty cross, getting it across his body to his right foot, and kudos to Brad Guzan, but like that had screamer, that had golazo written all over it, and ultimately, the veteran American survived and thrived on that one. So yeah, had that goal gone in and the result kept on, I don't think you probably would have asked me about this, but like I totally get what you're asking. Like, you want this guy to be doing a little bit more, considering what the Union paid for him, which isn't much elsewhere, but it's a lot in Philadelphia. But I would also go ahead and say, look at the table. Do you really want to change anything right now with the way that people are taking on their roles? And I get that, his price tag says that he should have a different role, but the role that he's taking on right now is working out.
I love when he leveled Guzan, by the way.
Oh, God.
Just
Dude,
took
that
him
was
the hell out.
100 on purpose. 100% on purpose. It was. Like, again, like I just looked at the way that he was looking at well, right before it, he was called aside by the ref, right, to like quit pushing or pulling or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then immediately the play after just went at him. It was unbelievable. I was chuckling a little bit.
Well, like you see against LA, it's like for people who haven't watched the LA match or saw the highlights, like Ty Brebo gets picked up off the ground, thrown against the ground, like just like a WWE move. So I don't mind these players roughing up because clearly other teams can get away with it. And I don't want people to walk into Chester or just expect us come into their stadium and figure we're just going to be bullied and run over. Like, I want these players to stand up for themselves and get chippy. Like, we've seen with Frankie Westfield so many times already this season. The kid is just a bulldog out there, ready to fight anybody who comes his way. So I'm super excited about what this club is offering in terms of an intensity. And I think one thing that was questioned in one of our earlier episodes, I think you guys might remember, is who's going to be that Martinez replacement? Like, who's going to bring that extra bit of tenacity and energy? I think across the board, they've all answered that question. They're all ready to play their hearts out and play tough, and they're not going to back down to anybody. They don't need a Martinez to come in there and, settle that business. But let's kind of go through a little circle here and wrap things up with a few final thoughts because we're already at almost an hour here. The Philadelphia Union pull off a great win tonight. I'm very excited overall by the performance. I think also one note before I shoot to Dave for his final thoughts. I'm pretty sure Jesus Bueno was the one who had this great pass to Michael Ua, and he kind of missed this volley and kind of shanked it to Guzan. But that's something I want to see more from Bueno, is kind of that long ball distribution, which we did see from Martinez a lot in his time with us. But Dave, final thoughts on the match tonight, and anything else you want to share before we close it out? You're on mute, Dave.
Sorry. A very efficient, solid win, I think, for the team. I think just, again, I think we keep looking at, does this team from last year or like past years win this game? Probably not. And I think as Carl, you tweeted out before we went live, this is only their second ever win at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the first in MLS play. So I think, again, small bit of history tonight for the Union, going into a very tough environment and silencing a massive crowd. Again, so a huge win keeps the momentum going into Wednesday night's game where hopefully, fingers crossed, they get to the quarterfinals of the Open Cup and they've got a legitimate chance of winning some serious silverware. And then just again, away from the Union, sorry, Jose, but massive congratulations to Crystal Palace winning their first ever trophy today. I mean,
Too soon, Dave. Too soon.
From like an English perspective, I think this year we've seen Newcastle win their first trophy in 70 years, and I think, again, as a fan of a lower league club, seeing a club like Palace who have had massive financial problems over the years, they're lucky to be a club. Some of the issues they faced, go on and win that first ever trophy. It does somewhat give and inspire hope for the smaller clubs, even like a Gillingham, and it puts you in that perspective, and you think, like, seeing people's raw emotions, like thousands of people crying at full time, like, it just gives you that hope that perhaps one day that could be you. And again, just a awesome day for Palace and English football. Jose, I've just seen you going crazy in the top left corner.
Just give me like 5 minutes. Jack McGlynn scored another
Yes.
heater with his fucking
Yes,
left foot.
yes.
Holy shit.
We
Yes,
both
I was
saw
like-
this too. Like, that is like holy.
I low-key watch Houston matches because of Jack, just because I want to see Jack do his thing.
Shout out to Jack McGlynn for that. My goodness gracious.
And he hit him with what my son does too. He hit him with the
Yeah,
oh
the
my
Dybala.
lord.
Love that.
Dude, this
Jose,
is an unbelievable goal.
That might
Jose-
be goal of the week.
I got you.
Yep.
I'm waiting for Twitter to refresh with his goal so I can see it live here or see a replay. It's a banger.
Yeah, dude. This is a fucking unbelievable rip that has to be like 30, 35.
Yeah.
I gotta check it out. So Jose, I know you mentioned Anthony Fontana a bit, so I want to just let you have a moment to share any plugs, the Fontana interview, etc. So for our fans here.
Yeah. So tomorrow I was asked to take on the priority match, the Messi versus Orlando game. So I'll be on top of that. There's only 2 matches tomorrow, so I'm sure that I'll be writing something for the 7 o'clock and then whatever the 9:30, 10 o'clock game is, which is I think LA against LA. That's one thing coming up. Anthony Fontana, I think if you are a Union fan and have been one for a little while, you'll recognize his name. But ultimately, I think an interview that was very therapeutic for the guy. Talked a lot about how difficult it was when things were not going well for him in Italy and in the Netherlands. So I recommend you watch it, listen, whatever. I'll put on the whole thing out for you guys, but yeah, just give that a look and just appreciate you all for listening to us here or whether I feature from time to time on the Free Kick Pod. But appreciate you all.
Absolutely. Kyle and Jillian, last but not least, any plugs for yourselves? What's coming up on the next episode of The One Team We Agree On?
Well, we have lots to discuss. I was at the Union 2 friendly against Ocean City Nor'easters yesterday.
Yeah, cool.
So I just put out an article today about that and with some pictures and video from that since there wasn't a whole lot put out about that.
Yeah.
I tried to cover that. And we'll have an episode probably tomorrow for our podcast.
Oh, we're definitely going to go
Yeah,
live
so-
tomorrow with the matches this week.
Yeah, so lots to cover there from both the Galaxy game and tonight and Union 2. So all kinds of that coming up from us.
And I'll probably have an article out sometime tomorrow morning with the match recap.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I can't wait to look forward to watch those and listen to those and read that article Jillian put out. I just saw the Jack McGlynn goal, by the way, on Apple. Holy cow. If you haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, we just watched that too. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah, so final thoughts from me too. I think somebody mentioned the comments. And again, thanks everybody for joining the comments tonight. It's sometimes almost hard to keep up because they keep popping up. So really, really appreciate the love and support that this show has gotten over this past year and a half now that we've been doing this post-game show in particular. I am most likely going to be at the Wednesday match against the Riverhounds, so I may or may not be able to go live afterwards. I will be at Miami, though, on Saturday. Well, I'll be in Philly, rather, for the Miami match. I don't think I'm going to be going live after that one. So if one of you guys want to pick it up, go for it. I will likely taking the night off from AAT Sports and partying a bit out in the stands on that evening. So if you do see me at either the Riverhounds match or the Miami match, please say hello. Otherwise, a little shout out. My kid made me this little notebook it has our old across the pitcher guy, all across the pitch sticker, and there's a picture of her on the back and my cat. So she said, "Can you shout me out on the show?" Because she made me like a little notebook for my notes for you. I said, "Yeah, I'll give you a shout out, Aubrey."
Which your old across the pitch sticker made a trip north of the border to Canada.
Did it really? So Canadians are seeing us from all the way out there.
Yeah, when we were out there. Oh, by the way, Joe, I retweeted McGlynn's goal, so you can see it on there.
Hey, Mike, can I give you I have a blank notebook. Would your daughter be willing to decorate it for like my reporting notebook where I take notes during games?
Sure, I'll be like, just make it Bolivian, just really zest it up. And she'll have no idea what that means, but she'll make it work,
Your cat will show up, I'm sure.
It's just pictures of my cat all over your notebook. But that's it. Union with a 1-0 win against Atlanta United. Only a second win in Atlanta besides that CCL win. I think Kasper Shabilko had 2 goals that night, and I think Fontana actually scored that day, if I remember correctly. So there you go. A little segue there, Jose, for your interview there. I want to see them beat the crap out of the Riverhounds, and then let's take on Messi as well. But thanks for everybody for joining us tonight. This is Across the Pitch. Go Union.
Doop.